Okay, this is Chapter 3 test. These are the corrections for it. Number 1, state the domain and range. Most of you did that part right. The domain is your x coordinates. The range is your y. So you listed the x. You don't have to put -1 twice. And then you listed your y. However, that's where most of you stopped. It says, does this relationship represent a function, and to explain your answer. No. Double x's. We talked about following the directions last week when we were doing the review for this. Again, state the domain and range. Does this represent a function? Explain. Most of you did the first part. A lot of you didn't do the second part. More of you did the second part on this one than you did on number 1, which I thought was weird. So our domain is our x points. Remember, the dots are not connected, so we just do -3, -2, -1, and 0. And then for our range, we have -3, that's a 3, 0, 3, and 6. And this does, because it passes the vertical line test. You could also say there's no repeating x's, okay? Exactly 1 x is paired with exactly 1 y, type of thing. Last one, graph the function f of x equals 1/2 times the absolute value of x. State the range. It gives you your domain, so you're going to have f of -2 equals 1/2 of the absolute value of -2, which is 1/2 times 2, which is 1. So our first range is 1. Then we have f of 0 equals 1/2 times the absolute value of 0. Anything times 0 is just 0. Then we have f of 2 equals 1/2 of the absolute value of 2, which equals 1/2 times 2, which is 1. We already have one up there. We don't need to list it again. And then we have f of 4. Half of the absolute value of 4 is 1/2 times 4, which is 2. Okay? So, -2 is 1, 0 is 0, 2 is 1, and 4 is 2. This is your range. Okay? So we get -2, 1, right there, 0, 0, right there, 2, 1, right there, and 4, 2, right there. So that's what your graph should have looked like. If you got a point on the graph wrong, I think I'm half or 1/4, I can't remember. It's been a while. The cost of membership is $21 plus $5.50 each month. Write a rule in function notation. Function notation means it needs to start off with f of x. That represents the total cost as a function of the number of months. Now you're paying $21 no matter what, plus $5.50 each month. We don't know how many months we're going for, so it's $5.50x plus 21. Our x term always goes before our term without a variable. Evaluate the function for the given domain, 3 and 12. Domain is just your x value, so you take 550 times 3 plus 21, and when you put that in your calculator, you should get 3750. Then you do the same thing with 12. You take 550 times 12 plus 21. And when you put that in your calculator, you get 87. What does the output represent? The output, or the y value, or your f of x value once you input your domain, is how much money for a certain time, or a certain amount of months, or something. Write a function that represents the relationship between between x and f of x. So we have f of x equals, when you look at those relations, you know you're going to have to multiply and then add something, right? In this case, we're multiplying by itself, so we're taking the x and squaring it and adding 1. Evaluate the function x squared plus 1 when x equals 2 and x equals -1. So we're going to have f of 2 equals 2 squared plus 1. 2 squared is 4, plus 1 is 5. And then on the next one we have f of -1 equals -1 squared plus 1. -1 squared is 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2. On 7, most of you guys did pretty good on this. All you're doing is determining how to get to the next number. If it's adding and subtracting, it's arithmetic. If it's multiplying or dividing, it's not arithmetic. So, on this one, we're adding 5. So, yes. And the adding 5 is your reasoning. On this one, we're multiplying by 2. So, no. On this one, we're subtracting 9. So, it's a yes. And on this one, we're adding 7. So, it's a yes. Given the arithmetic sequence, determine the common difference, write the explicit rule, and find the 57th term. Now, most of you got the common difference and the explicit rule because I was very explicit with you that the explicit rule is the formula. So, the common difference, or the CD as I'm going to put it, is -3. The explicit rule, all you had to do was write that down. You could have written it down for the start of your finding the 57th term work. This is the explicit rule. Okay? AN, that's the nth term, what you're trying to find. So AN, we could change the n there to a 57 if we felt so inclined. Equals, A1 is the first term, so 11 plus the 57th term is what we're looking for, minus 1 times the common difference, which is -3. Then we have 11 plus 56 times -3. Okay? You multiply 56 and -3 and you get -168, and you add that to 11 and you get -157. I'm not going to show all that work though because I don't have room. This is what the 57th term would be. Now I told you that you had to use the formula. You couldn't just minus 3 57 times. Some of you still minus 3 57 times, and I told you I was going to give credit if you did that, so I didn't give you credit if you did that. A new car costs $13,000 and is decreasing in value by $200 a year. How much will the car be worth after 1, 2, and 3 years? So if it's starting off at $13,000, to get the first year, it would be minus 200, which is $12,800. Then we would minus 200 from that to get $12,600. And then we would minus 200 from that to get $12,400. The common difference, minus 200, we're decreasing in value. The explicit rule is just the formula again, so that should be another easy point. AN equals A1 plus N minus 1 times the common difference. Now you're going to use the rule to find the value of the car after 15 years. Now this is where a lot of you guys went wrong. I don't know necessarily what happened because I don't have your test in front of me. So we take AN. The first term was 13,000. That's how much the car started at with the value. Plus, we're looking for the 15th term, minus 1, and the common difference was negative 200. So, this shows that we have 13,000 plus 14 times negative 200. Okay? Negative 200 times 14 is negative 2,800. So we have 13,000 minus 2,800, and we get 10,200. Now I think a lot of you were starting off with A1, the first term, as 12,400 or 12,800 or something like that, but it's actually 13,000 because that's how much the car was worth in the beginning. A runner in a race ran quickly for the first few minutes. Slowed down, so he's like running along. It doesn't even say he was running steady, so we just know he's running quickly. Maybe he just started. And then he slowed down. And then he ran a steady. And then he ran as fast as he could. Boom. Just like that. Most of you, I think everyone got that right. I think there might have been 1 or 2 people that didn't get this part of it, and I took a point off for that, like half a point, but I think almost everyone got that. And I think almost everyone got that 11 was B. I don't remember anyone getting that wrong. If you did, I'm sorry. It's B. In each situation, determine if the graph will be discrete or continuous. Explain your answers. Number of visitors to a movie theater is discrete. You can't have half of a person. Distance traveled by a roller coaster car in 20 seconds is continuous. No matter what point you stop, it's been traveling that time. Amount of money earned on number of magazines sold is discrete. You cannot sell half a magazine. Nance, or Nancy, has $200 and spends $10 each week. Give the domain and range of the function. I like to set up a function rule. So, each week she spends $10, so that's $10 coming out of her account each week, and she starts with a positive $200. Okay, that helps me know that what number I plug in there, I can plug up to 20 into there before I get a balance of 0. Negative 10 times 20 is negative 200. Negative 200 plus 200 is 0. So my domain, I can plug in anywhere from 1 to 20. Okay? And my range, she can have anywhere from $0 to $200 in there. That's Y. Okay. 14. A fisherman is selling halibut. He has 42 halibut and plans to sell them for $12 each. The fisherman's total sales in dollars is a function of the number of halibut he sells. So, like this. He has halibut and he sells them for a certain amount, right? He always sells them for $12, and X is our number of halibut. So if a person comes and buys 4 halibut, they're paying 4 times 12, right? So the X, or the domain, is the number of halibut, because we can change the number of halibut. The range is the price paid for the halibut, because the price paid for the halibut depends on how many halibut are bought, and range is your Y, and the Y value, or Y variable, is the dependent variable in this situation. Alright, these are going to be hard to do on the computer because the graphs are so weird, or so not very focused. But I'll do my best. So we have 1 and 15. We have in 02 we have 20. In 03 we had 23. In 04 we had 30. And in 05 we had 34. That's the year I graduated from high school. Okay, and then we're drawing a trend line, which this should not be a perfectly straight line on your graph, but you guys can all graph this stuff. Most of you did a great trend line. You just draw a line and have equal number of dots on the top and bottom, or as equal to as possible. I think the only person or people who got the trend line part wrong were those who didn't draw a trend line. The correlation, this is going up, the dots, because they start here and they end here, right? So we went up, so that is a positive correlation. And let me look at my paper copy and I can tell you what our expectedness for 2008 would be. 2008, if we had 34 in 05, I think I remember on my key, I think I put about 38. And it's really as long as you had in the 30s, I counted it right. Okay, so this one, 98 was 60. About right there. 99 was 52. So about right there. 2000 was 54, and then 01 was 48. Okay, and then you draw your trend line, try to have equal points above and below as best you can. Now, we started here and ended here, so it's a negative correlation. And then again, we're trying to make a prediction in 04. And I think 04 was, if I remember right, I don't want to, 04, what was 01 was 48. I don't know, it was in the 20s. If you put somewhere in the 20s for the percent, I counted it right. I don't think I took anyone's points off on that unless they did not do it. Or like it was in the 20s and they said it was supposed to be like in the hundreds type of thing. So, there you go.